What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about huge differences between Canada and America, and not the obvious stuff. Today, we're gonna go a little deeper than that. If I see anyone in here talking about maple syrup or someone who's like, in Canada, it's cold. It's cold there. They will be immediately shunned from this discussion. Not to be too harsh, but they will be shunned. Today we're going to go deeper. We have a discussion that I thought's really interesting here, and a lot of really interesting talking points about the differences between Canadian and American society and laws and culture and, stuff besides moose and syrup. And although those, honestly, those are actually very fun to talk about as well, just not today. Today we're going to go deep. Someone asked, what are some true differences between America and Canada, and which are stereotyped? Yeah, that's a good point as well. There's differences that are just like very overly talked about, stereotypical, kind of blown out of proportion, honestly. There's some places in Canada, like especially southern Canada, that's not even that cold, a little colder. Sometimes, Americans think Canadians are actually living in igloos. That's actually a thing. That's like a stereotype in America. Canadians in igloos. But we all know only 85% of Canadians live in igloos. So yeah, it's blown out of proportion. It's not 99%. It's only 85%, right? So, okay. All right, in all seriousness, huge differences between American and Canadian. Culture is number one, gun culture. Wow, there you go. Already going to a pretty big topic, especially in America. Don't get me wrong, gun culture exists to some extent in the cultures of both countries, but it is way more intense in America than Canada. I would absolutely agree with that. I didn't even know gun culture is a thing in Canada. I never hear about Canadians and their thoughts on guns. In some of the discussions I've read about in other videos I've done, I know Canadians definitely think America is strange. For good reason, I think America is pretty strange as well. The American in me, as I've been born and grown and raised here, sees some of the, redeeming qualities of our gun policies in the sense that if you feel like you really need a gun for personal protection or hunting, okay, cool. It's cool that here you can do that. But the fact that here in America it is so easy to get a gun, no matter what purpose you want to use it for, having a gun is an incredibly big responsibility. It's at least as big, it's bigger responsibility, or at least as big as driving a car. And yet, driving a car here in America, you need a license. It's kind of hard to get a driver's license. You have to pass a test, prove your competency. That's exactly what we should have to do for guns. So that is a pretty disturbing aspect to me, and I think disturbing for Canada and a lot of the rest of the world looking at us. So for sure. And, the gun culture in America, in terms of Americans are just a lot more gung-ho about our right to own guns as well. We talk about it. There's entire political and societal movements based around protecting our right to own guns. Some Canadians love guns, but they don't love guns like Americans do. Americans, well, in terms of politics, a lot of Americans are split. In terms of, the more as time goes on and there's, unfortunately, mass shootings, casualties, gun violence in America, a lot of Americans start to just question, why is it like this? Why is it so much more like this here than anywhere else? And yeah, definitely, you can't argue. Some of that has to do with how easy it is to get a gun. It truly, you can go to a store like Dick's Sporting Goods or something, or a hunting store, and buy a gun that same day. That's crazy. That's insane. You should have to pass a test, prove you understand how the gun works, prove you're physically and mentally equipped with the responsibility to own it and operate it. That's the scary part. It's not so much that, like, guns exist here in America. It's just how easy it is to get it. And you should have to pass a test every year, recertify, prove that you're worthy of the responsibility, because it is a big responsibility. This is a difference in outlook I appreciate. In Canada, we have almost as many gun owners per capita. Wow, really? Like the population density of gun owners is the same in Canada. That's shocking to me if that's true. Wow, I didn't know that. But while the US views gun ownership as a sacred right to, and central to their entire culture, Canadian gun owners almost universally recognize gun ownership as a privilege, subject to government regulation, not and as a hobby, not the bedrock of their self-identity. Wow. There's some Americans like that, where gun ownership is the bedrock of their self-identity, but for the vast majority of Americans, it's not the case. Like, in all the places I've lived in my life, several different states, like, I've never once been, and I'm privileged to say this, I understand that. I've never once been afraid of other Americans owning guns. I've never felt uncomfortable. I've never even seen someone open carry a gun, because you can get the proper certifications to carry a gun around on your hip if you want in the United States. Or a lot of Americans have a concealed carry where you can carry a gun and no one can see it. And I don't know, even that doesn't disturb me as much as you'd think. And I think that's just my personal experience. If I lived in a major city or one of America's biggest crime cities, I would probably have a way different opinion, a way different sense of urgency on this matter. But as far as the American self-identity, I don't know if Canadians know this, but it kind of has to do with gun ownership as part of our Constitution. And when our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, it was right after the Revolutionary War. Like right there. Americans had finally gotten our independence, and guns mattered a lot then. It mattered because the original Americans wanted American civilians to own guns, to stop powerful government entities from taking over, like the British entity that had been in charge of America for so long. The Constitution was written to kind of to give citizens guns so that they could fight against tyranny or too much of a centralized power. That was an original intent. And they didn't want the government, they wanted the Americans to be like a militia if we ever had to go to war or fight for our freedom. You know, this is around literally the Revolutionary War, Like Americans this was on the top of their mind, having to own a gun to become a militia, to assemble and be the army to fight for our freedom. That was on our, and now we're in 2023 and all of the policies and stuff have stayed kind of the same. Guns back then, it took like 10 minutes to reload it, Now you can fire like 500 rounds per minute if you have an automatic weapon, So definitely America has not updated with the times. And because it's in our Constitution, it's kind of become ingrained in American culture, for sure. Yeah. I have many friends and family who are gun owners. None of them are hurt that there has to be a process to getting your gun license, and that you're expected to be a responsible user. I agree. I agree with the Canadian outlook on that I'm reading here. That it should be normalized here in America that it should be a difficult process to get a gun. It should be kind of annoying. It should be kind of difficult to get a gun. I think that's perfectly reasonable, honestly. You should have to prove that you can handle it, the responsibility. And that seems to be more so the case in Canada. So I think that's a totally valid viewpoint. I don't know. I went on kind of a big rant there. Then we had to start with the gun culture question, didn't we? All right, what are some other huge differences between America and Canada? The military features prominently in American culture spills over into daily life in a way it does not in Canada. Yeah, that's true. Here in America, being military benefits, military acknowledgement is really alive. Like we really go out of our way as Americans to kind of honor our military personnel, and I don't really have a problem with that. They are the modern day equivalent of that soldier, that warrior putting themselves in harm's way for your protection. A lot of Americans would say for our freedom. But yeah, I don't really have a. Maybe it's weird to other countries how much America kind of prominently. I don't know. I just think we make holidays around them. Sometimes at restaurants, military gets discounts. Is that different in Canada? I'm sure Canada is like, kind of emphasizing and giving honor and praise to their military service members. Just like maybe in America we do it a little bit more, and maybe that comes across as strange, like we're obsessed with military or something. I think we spend way too much on the military. That's a weird one, actually. I think all Americans are secretly happy that we have such a huge military budget and army, like way bigger than is necessary. But if you're gonna like overspend on something, I guess that is not the worst thing. It makes us feel nice and safe here in our ivory tower, I guess. So, I don't know. It'd be nice if they maybe cut the military budget and like fixed some of the potholes out in the street. That'd be nice. Roughly 20% of Canada speaks French. Oh, yes, that is a huge difference between America and Canada. Wow, these are good. I was gonna say, like, these topics of discussion some Canadians have put forward here in this Reddit discussion are really good. Like, really interesting. Yeah, in America, I almost wish we were more bilingual. I think that'd be cool. Canada is very unique in that sense. I don't know Canadians' thoughts on this, and the Quebecois have different thoughts on this and their own culture, and seems really different, but yet a part of Canada. And it's not that it. I guess the interesting thing to me is Canada. It's not like they're bilingual, although a lot of French-speaking Canadians probably are, right? They probably speak English as well. It's not like French is mixed. What I'm trying to say is it's not like French language is mixed throughout all of Canada evenly. And all of Canada speaks is bilingual. It's very concentrated. It's very unique. It's like another country within the country. Like Quebec is so different. I don't know if there's anywhere else on earth like this. It's fascinating and it's awesome. That kind of variance, that representation of different cultures is something that's really cool about Canada, and we certainly have nothing like it here. I think the second most spoken language in America is Spanish, but it's like all throughout America are Spanish speakers, sprinkled throughout. It's not like we have a centralized, concentrated, oh, that's the Spanish speaking area of America. That'd be real interesting. That's like the equivalent to French speaking parts of Canada. It's really interesting. It's hard for me to relate, but this is a massive difference, of course. It's pretty cool. Um, Another 10% in English Canada can speak French as a second language. Oh, there you go. See, I didn't know that. 10% of English Canada does is bilingual, or to some extent. That's really cool. Really cool. That makes sense to me, actually. 15% of the US speak Spanish, not because we're bilingual. I mean, the bilingual Spanish speakers, honestly. There's a lot of people that immigrate from Mexico, speak Spanish, and also learn English, and they're really the bilingual part of our population. Okay. What else do we have here? A true difference is a culture of individuality. It's subtle but true. Americans are more preoccupied with their individual interests and that of their families than thinking in terms of greater society. I 100% agree with this. I think that is a very American frame of mind. And maybe it's why Americans aren't known for being kind and polite like Canadians are. It stems a little bit from this. In America, it is a fend for yourself attitude. Do what you need to do to succeed. Hustle, grind, beat the other person. That is definitely an American attitude. That's definitely an attitude we're taught growing up here, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And I wonder how much that is compared to other countries like Canada. And it definitely affects us as a society. How can it not? Right? Yeah, we're definitely more individual minded rather than community minded. Although there's, and when you do run into like a more community feel or attitude, it's really nice. Americans are like, wow, this is nice. Like, feel part of a community. It's like this magical thing. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Is that a big difference between America and Canada? That community versus individual emphasis? I wonder. Milk in a bag exists in Canada. Yeah, okay. We were going to stay away from these. The mousse, maple syrup, igloo, milk in a bag. Yes, that is. A lot of Americans don't actually know about the milk in a bag. I have to say. If Americans knew more about the milk in a bag, they would never stop talking about it. The Americans I've told about milk in a bag blows their minds. Blew my mind when I reacted to that a long time ago. I was like, what is going on? Is this a joke? You Canadians are sick. Milk in a bag. I don't think I was quite like that. I hope. When Americans want to vote for conservatives, they vote Republican red. When they want to vote for liberals, they vote Democrat blue. Here, Canadians who want to vote for conservatives vote conservative blue. Canadians who want to vote liberal red. Is that true? Are the colors swapped in Canada? In America? The colors are reverse? Why? Why is that? I didn't know that. That's actually interesting. Really random, too. All right. And there's a lot more political parties in Canada, I think, which is, like, honestly fantastic. Like, the fact that America has it's just two parties. Pick one. Any nuanced opinion you have on matters, throw them out the window. Throw them away. You got two picks. That's not good. Americans are louder than Canadians. What I hear as shouting is equivalent to being charming. Some people in Canada do this, but it is much less common. Americans are louder than Canadians. I wonder if there's like a study on this. I hear this a lot. Americans are just louder. When we go on vacation around the world, people know we're Americans because they can hear us from a mile away. Apparently, yeah, I think maybe this comes from we were talking about how Americans are a little more selfish, individualistic. We don't consider I try to, but a lot of Americans don't consider how they're affecting other people. And this stems from that. Americans being loud and annoying stems from this idea of, oh, I'm the center of the universe. I want to do what makes me happy and gives me pleasure. If I want to be loud, I'll be loud. That's the fact that is kind of an American attitude is sad. And I'm glad that's different in Canada. Sad that it's an American thing, though. Canadian here, the portion sizes. Holy mother of God, the portion sizes. I know. It's great. It's great, isn't it? I live in Ontario along the New York border. Back before the whole mess started, I'd visit New York towns along the border. I stopped in a lakeside restaurant and ordered a side salad. Thing was bigger than 2 Canadian-sized mains. Heck yeah. I joke about this, but I'm serious too. It's probably one of the things I like about America the most is we have giant portion sizes. Our small Coke is probably your large or medium Coke. Our meals at places are huge. It's very normal for everywhere we go for the waiter to offer a box or styrofoam container to take part of your meal home. I never need that. I have no problem stuffing my face even with our gigantic American-sized portioning. I'm happy about it. From a financial standpoint, we get more bang for our buck, right? Like we just get more food. Our snack containers are bigger. Our drinks are bigger. Thing was a mountain. I can't even imagine what an American main salad would look like. Probably feed a family of 4. Or 1 American, you see. That's the thing. That's funny. Displaying patriotism is much bigger in the States. Much more U.S. flags on the front of homes in the States than Canada. Really? I mean, in America, it is pretty normal to have a flag on the front of your home. I'm not going to call it common. 1 out of, oh gosh, this is tough for me to even. It depends on where you live in the United States as well. It really depends what kind of state you live in. Yeah, it's not, but it's just not surprising to see a American flag on the front of a home. Let's say that. Sometimes you even see people in trucks with like flags on their car, like blowing in the wind. Unfortunately, it's sad to see in the modern day the American flag itself and putting it on your door, putting it on your car. Sadly, putting an American flag up has become associated with like the conservative party, like over patriotism, overzealous, like over American. And I think that's kind of sad. Like it is true. It's definitely associated with with a Republican party now. Just having a flag up, which no matter what side you're for or against, you'd love to live in a world where the flag of your nation isn't associated with like politics. It's just the flag of your country. And you can just be like, yeah, that's cool. I can be proud of that, of where I live. There's my flag. But sadly, that's changed a lot. It can be a bit, it can make people uncomfortable hoisting up an American flag these days. It has like a political statement associated with it. I assume that's not the case in Canada. I don't know how much Canadians put flags up on their houses, or I don't know. That'd be interesting to. Are Canadians very patriotic, nationalistic, proud of Canada? I would assume so, right? Canada's a pretty awesome place, I would assume. The flag's cool. Yeah. Sadly, it's different here in America. That's kind of sad, but on the whole, I have to say this discussion of huge differences between America and Canada, this was fascinating. These topics, like I said, I'm happy they were below the surface, deeper, talking about real interesting cultural differences between our nations. And I think it's good to talk about this stuff. I'm not saying that I'm correct on all this stuff I have commentated on here today. My opinions are just mine and based on my biases and where I'm a product of where I've grown up and the people I'm around. And yeah, these are just my analysis. Take it for what you will, but I really enjoyed hearing about these interesting, nuanced differences between our cultures, Canadian and American. It's fascinating. So anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with a big difference between Canada and America that you have noticed. Something interesting maybe, a difference. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.